In today's video, we're taking a close-up look at the Viet Cong's arsenal of booby traps in the Vietnam War. From the infamous Punji stake pits designed to impale to grenade traps set to detonate with a step. Facts vs. History presents horrifying booby traps used against U.S. soldiers in the Vietnam War. Punji Sticks. The infamous Punji stick booby traps were simple yet devilishly effective for piercing limbs and feet. The Viet Cong specifically placed them along known foot patrol routes in painful anticipation of American boots. Punji sticks took the form of sharpened bamboo stakes, hardened wood splinters, or even barbed metal spikes plunging into shallow covered pits or grassy patches likely to be dived into for cover during firefights. For added bacteria and toxins, Punji sticks were often smeared with dirt and human feces to cause festering infections. Stepping directly on a concealed pit brought a horrific agriculture-sourced Iron Maiden. Accidentally rolling over a grass bed hiding upward-facing Punji sticks while evading bullets brought loss of limb or life. The pits were deep enough that victims writhing in shock could not easily escape without assistance. Unmanned machine gun nests would further trap soldiers attempting self-extraction while under concealed fire. Bamboo whip traps. Equally difficult to spot, the Viet Cong constructed these traps out of bent, sturdy bamboo, disguising them as vegetation near footpaths through heavy jungle and forest. Nearly 10-foot lengths of bamboo were held back at tension using cords, sticks, or logs as makeshift catches, attaching them to nearby trees. The tripwire was rigged to release the catch when stumbled upon, whipping the bamboo violently like a horizontal pendulum. Spikes and serrated edges of sharpened steel or glass were fastened toward the bottom end of the bamboo pole right at leg level, ripping through fatigues, boots, and skin in a fraction of a second. The effects were maximized by angling two bamboo whips facing each other across a trail just centimeters above the ground. Unlucky soldiers crossing between would suffer gruesome impalement and slashing from both directions simultaneously. Grenade-based traps. With grenades readily available from raids and sympathizers, the Viet Cong engineered clever medium-tech traps using the explosive devices Americans themselves had brought. One infamous trick was the mud ball grenade mine. Live M26 or M33 grenades had their safety pins removed and handles wedged in place using balls of hardened clay or mud formed around the lever. These were then partially buried in soil and wood-framed thatch huts where American forces frequently stormed through or took temporary shelter, camouflaged by scattered debris. The stepping pressure from a searching soldier would break the mud encasement and release the handle, beginning the fatal detonation countdown. Similarly, grenades rigged to simple tripwires would also give victims only a few panicking seconds of tugging in vain at the wire before exploding in their faces. Another form of grenade trap reflected knowledge that U.S. soldiers would be drawn towards examining enemy corpses, and gear, potentially booby-trapped with mines, also functioned as bait. Viet Cong fighters, when retreating from skirmishes, not only took their weapons but also rigged grenades with tripwires to the bodies of dead comrades. Explosives were also hidden under seemingly discarded enemy equipment. Cartridge traps. The lethal creativity of booby traps is further evidenced by cartridge traps that turned American ammunition and firearms against their own users. These improvised devices reveal in-depth understanding of the enemy's standard-issue rifles and clever reworking of materials at hand. Empty cartridges were taken from battlefields or through black market purchases in South Vietnam cities. Insurgent forces utilized ammunition with steel cases compatible for the M16 rifles used abundantly by the U.S. infantry. A slender bamboo tube, slightly wider than an M16 cartridge, became the foundation for the simple but devastating trap. A nail was fastened through the side of the tube, extending just to the central void. The open-topped tube was staked down into muddy jungle earth with the nail tip facing straight up. An unused steel cartridge was then wedged down into the tube, positioning its rim flush to the nail point. The pressure of an unknown soldier stepping on the buried tube would drive the soft cartridge primer perfectly into the nail's needle tip. With the improvised firing pin completing the rifle cartridge's ignition circuit, the bullet explosively discharged straight up through the oversighted foot. Agent Orange. The use of Agent Orange by American forces in Vietnam represents a dark chapter in military history, not just for its immediate impact but also for the lasting legacy it left behind. From 1961 to 71, over 45 million liters of this herbicide were sprayed across Vietnamese forests and farmlands, a tactic intended to strip the dense jungle cover that the Viet Cong used to their advantage. But the consequences of this chemical warfare extended far beyond the strategic objectives, seeping into the very fabric of the Vietnamese environment and its people. The devastation wrought by Agent Orange was profound, contaminating water sources, soil, and the food chain, resulting in an estimated 400,000 deaths and over 1 million cases of cancer, birth defects, and other severe illnesses. The tragedy of Agent Orange is further complicated by its enduring presence, with affected landscapes and populations still grappling with its toxic aftermath decades later. Hidden atrocities. Beyond the battlefield, the Vietnam War was marked by a series of human rights violations that remain deeply etched in the memories of those who witnessed them. The My Lai massacre stands out as a particularly gruesome chapter where over 500 unarmed civilians were brutally killed by Charlie Company, an event that highlighted the brutal reality of a war that often blurred the lines between combatant and non-combatant. This massacre was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of violence against civilians that included rape, mutilation, and execution. The psychological impact of these atrocities on both the Vietnamese population and American soldiers can't be overstated, with the latter often collecting trophies from their kills, a grim testament to the dehumanizing effects of prolonged conflict. POW camps. The experience of prisoners of war in Vietnam adds another layer of tragedy to the conflict. American POWs, including notable figures like John McCain and James Stockdale, faced years of inhumane treatment, enduring solitary confinement, starvation, and the brutal torture at the hands of the North Vietnamese captors. These experiences, which violated every standard of wartime detention set by international law, left indelible marks on those who endured them, with many returning home bearing the physical and psychological scars of their captivity. The stories of survival and resilience that emerged from these POW camps, however, also speak to the human spirit's capacity to endure even the most unimaginable horrors. Despite the darkness of their circumstances, many POWs found ways to communicate, maintain their morale, and hold on to their patriotic convictions. Yet the return of these survivors forced the U.S. to confront the grim realities of a war that it had sought to keep hidden from public view. Now it's time to hear from you. What was the most surprising part of this video? Let us know in the comments section below.